Hi everyone, it's Laura Volpes, and in today's video I'm going to share with you how to create two different cards with the same design and the JAWSOME stamp set by Studio Katia. As always, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to let me know by giving it a thumbs up and leaving a comment in the comment section down below. This helps me knowing that you do enjoy this content and you'd like to see more like this, and it also helps my content being discovered by other crafters out there. Also, if you're new, don't forget to subscribe and to activate the notification bell to be up to date with the release of new content. And now let's get started. I started by die cutting some vanilla as well as some blush cardstock, and I used this rectangle die over here. This is from the Darling Ribbon and Dotted Frames dies, and it cuts a rectangle which is the standard A2 size, so 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, and it adds a nice dotted detail all around. I then decided that I wanted to split these rectangles into two parts, not the same size, so I'm going kind of 1/3 of the way, and I'm using the Simple Dotted Borders die, also by Studio Katia, to cut my rectangles. Once I die cut my first rectangle, I'm going to use the die cut pieces to help me line up the die with the second one, and this way the two parts that I obtain match up perfectly with the ones that I die cut from my blush cardstock. The reason why I did that is that on my card base I can then swap the order of these die cuts and have different colors of cardstock on my design. I wanted to add a fun pattern to my vanilla cardstock, and you could do this also before die cutting, it's up to you. I have my Brushstroke Waves stencil by Studio Katia, and I secured it to my cardstock using the Make Art Station. This is a metallic surface with magnets that is very handy when you work with stencils. I'm using one of the blending brushes by Studio Katia to blend some ink through the stencil. The one that I'm using here is by Ranger from the Simon Hurley line, and it's in the color Rosy Cheek. As you can see, I'm not using circular motions with my brush, but rather I am swiping it across the lines, because this will not lift the stencil and I will get a nice and crisp impression. Once the ink blending is done, I can quickly rinse off the stencil and clean my Make Art Station with a baby wipe, and then I moved on and I created the focal point for my card. I actually die cut two of these tags using the Dotted Patterns set 3 dies, and I die cut some teal cardstock. I'm going to work with stencils again. This one here is called Light Ray, and it's great to create focal points on your cards. In this case, I'm using it on this tag. I am first ink blending some white pigment ink through the stencil. This will create a base layer, and then I decided that I wanted to add some shimmer to this tag, so I'm going to use some Stickles glitter gel. The color I chose is Moondust, and it's really beautiful. It dries clear and it has a lot of sparkle. The reason why I added the pigment ink in the first place is that this, as I said, dries clear, so I wanted to create a base for it to stand out even more on my tag. I'm using the silicone spatula by Tonic Studios to apply the glitter gel through the stencil. I'm going to make sure that I have a nice and homogeneous application, and then once that is done, I can lift off my stencil. And one thing that I always recommend when you work with pastes like this is that you wash everything immediately. This is the result. I really love how it stands out against the teal on my tag, and as I was mentioning before moving on, I'm going to very quickly clean my Make Art Station with a baby wipe. I'm going to remove the excess glitter paste from the spatula, and then I'm going to rinse both the spatula and the stencil in my sink. For my images, I decided to use the JAWSOME stamp set by Studio Katia. This is a lot of fun and I really enjoy creating with it. I'm going to stamp it on some Bristol Smooth cardstock by Strathmore using Premium Hybrid Black ink by scrapbook.com. I'm going to do some coloring with water markers today. I'm going to use my Arteza markers, but you can use this ink both with water-based and alcohol-based media. I'm stamping the images a couple of times and then I can go ahead and start my coloring. I waited a couple of minutes for the ink to be completely dry before coloring because I didn't want to smudge it with my hands. And then, as I said, I'm going to use Arteza markers today. These markers are water-based, so you can blend them with water and with each other, and I'm going to do both today. So as you saw, I'm going to first lay down my shadows with the darker marker. I'm going to then blend that out with my mid-tone marker, and I'm using a water brush to blend everything out towards the highlight. You can also just use a darker marker and blend it out with water. You will get enough variation to create some nice dimension, but I thought I'd use two markers just because I have fun coloring and I thought it would add a little bit more variation because the marker that I used for the shadow is a little bit more of a neutral gray, whereas the one for my midtones you can see has more blue in it, and I thought it was a fun touch for these sharks. While I finished coloring these images, I wanted to talk about my creative process a little bit with you. Hopefully it helps. I wasn't entirely sure what I wanted to create when I sat down, and I was trying to come up with a nice card for this video and my blog post today. So what I did is I first decided what stamp set I wanted to use, and then I just googled card sketches and color palettes. I found a card sketch which I felt I wanted to use, and also a color palette that was a little bit unusual for me. There is so much inspiration out there in terms of color combinations and card layouts, and this is a great way to try something new that we wouldn't have come up with otherwise. So I wanted to share this process with you in case you feel stuck and you would like to create but don't know where to start. And because there is a little bit of time left, I also wanted to let you know, in case you don't already, that I go live weekly on the Studio Katia Facebook page, and there is a $15 gift certificate to the Studio Katia store, which is given away randomly among the comments left during the live. So in case you'd like to chat with me while I craft weekly, you can do that on the Studio Katia Facebook page. Alright, so at this point the coloring is done and I can go ahead and die cut the images with the coordinating dies. I secured them in place with some purple tape and then I can run them through my Gemini Mini machine. Luckily the plates were long enough that I could die cut everything at once, and here are the images all colored and die cut. I think they are a lot of fun. Off camera, I also prepared two top folding A2 card bases. This is some white cardstock that is cut to 4¼ by 11 inches and scored at 5½ inches, and I could go ahead and start assembling my cards. As I mentioned earlier, I am swapping around the position of my vanilla and my blush cardstock, and this way I'll end up with two cards which have the same basic design, but they are a little bit different from each other. Because I wanted the sharks to go on the tag and I wanted to trim them off along the sides of the tag, I'm actually using the tag itself to die cut them out. Again, using some purple tape, that tag die from the dotted patterns set 3 dies, and running everything through my die cutting machine. And while I am actually recording this voiceover, I just thought about the fact that it would have been super fun to use the tails of the sharks on the second card, instead of or alongside the surfboard. To create a little bit of dimension on the card, I decided to raise the tags as well as the images on some foam tape, and I used the white foam tape roll by Studio Katia. I also raised this little speech bubble with the heart, which is so cute, and then I moved on and worked on the sentiment. This time I decided to use the lovely words dies and to die cut the word XOXO out of some black cardstock. I find this die set really useful. I love the style of the font, and die cut sentiments are a very quick and effective way to create greetings on your cards. To spice things up a little bit, I am coating the images as well as the sentiment with a glitter brush pen, which is going to add some subtle shimmer to the card. And then something that I love doing but I haven't done in a while is to coat my die cut sentiment with glossy accents. They do look milky right now, but you will see it in the pictures, at the end of the video as well as on the blog, that when it dries clear and it adds some nice gloss and a little bit of dimension to the projects. I added it also to the flowers on the surfboard and to that little speech bubble on my second card, and then I moved on and I added a few white highlights to the characters as well as the surfboard. It would have been a little bit safer to add the glossy accents as a last step, because then I would be sure not to smudge them, but I was careful so nothing bad happened. I decided to add some pearls to the cards to decorate them a little bit more. I used lemon burst pearls on the first one, and these ones here are ripe persimmon. Unfortunately, they are sold out at the moment, but you could use rose pink, and I will have a link to those ones as well in the description box down below. Here are the finished cards. I think they are a lot of fun. The design is pretty simple and they were rather quick to come together. They would be even faster, as I said, if you used the tails of the sharks on the second card, and it would be a fun touch. As always, if you did enjoy this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know if you do like to use card sketches and color palette inspiration. If you haven't already, you can subscribe to this channel for more card making and paper crafting inspiration. And as always, thank you all so much for stopping by and have a great day.